Good morning, folks. Looks like it's 10 a.m. Mountain Time. We'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. My name is Jackson Bigley. I'm from Electronic Data Solutions, and thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to attend the webinar and learn a little bit about the Trimble TerraFlex solution. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Right now everybody is muted on the line, just to make it clear for everyone to hear. So Trimble TerraFlex is software for geospatial field data collection from Trimble. We're going to go through some PowerPoints on kind of the basics or the concepts behind Teraflex, and then a live demonstration of what Teraflex looks like to the user. For those of you who are not familiar with our company, Electronic Data Solutions, we specialize in mobile computing and field data collection applications. We've been in business over 26 years, and we offer a variety of hardware and software solutions, including our staff of technical support folks, our certified trainers. We have a certified repair center as well. Our main office is in Idaho, in Jerome, and we also have 8 field offices, folks like myself in the territory working with specific customers sort of on a daily basis and doing work in the field with those customers. So 8 different field offices basically in the western part of the United States, spreading from myself in Montana down to Sean, my counterpart in Sacramento, California. So why Teraflex? Why should we learn about another piece of software? We've already got field data collection software, very likely. It may be Trimble software. It might be the Trimble TerraSync software. It might be Esri ArcPad. It could be Esri ArcGIS Mobile, or it could be some other third-party software. So where does Teraflex fit into the mix? For one, Teraflex is very affordable. So that's one positive aspect. It's on a user basis. So essentially each user has an account. They pay for an annual subscription and access to the Teraflex solution. So it's very affordable. It's easy to use. It's very simple. The interface is very simple. So the support that goes with Teraflex is very low. And it's designed for geospatial data collection, a form-driven data collection. So it is what I would say is entry-level solution. An entry-level solution meaning that it has a functionality, enough functionality built in to replace pen and paper reporting. It doesn't have all the functionality that every field application needs or might require. So it's an entry-level solution. It's a way to quickly deploy a data collection solution that's form-driven to a wide number of users in the field without a lot of headache, essentially. It's multi-platform support, so you can use Teraflex on iOS devices, your Android devices, and your Trimble handhelds. So we have flexibility here from the user standpoint to use a smartphone, say an iPhone, an iPad, an Android tablet, or Trimble handhelds. In the case of the Trimble handhelds, we could use all the way up to, say, like the Geo 7X and high accuracy mapping using the Teraflex solution. So a lot of flexibility, a multi-platform solution, and that's ultimately what users are looking for nowadays, depending on the devices they may already have within their fleet. A little bit more on why Teraflex. So it's a very simple way to build the data collection forms. So with your user account, you're able to log into the Teraflex cloud, and there you have the functionality on the cloud to build the data collection forms. So these are your simple forms that dictate what you want to collect in the field. If you're a Trimble TerraSync user, it's similar to a data dictionary concept. And essentially the form is going to be feature-driven in most cases. So if I'm going to be mapping a street sign, I've got that form built within that project to do that work. And for each street sign, I can collect information about reflectivity if I want to, the condition, a picture of it if I want to, and I can upload that information easily to the Teraflex cloud. So ultimately, it promotes the sharing of the information across your organization in a more timely fashion. So on the Teraflex cloud side, if I create a new project, and within that project I build some forms, say those forms are for in some kind of inspection, whatever it might be, whether it's a tree or a culvert or a mainline water break, I build those forms, and then I quickly can deploy that to the field. And users in the field automatically get that information when they log into their Teraflex account on whatever device they have. Okay, so moving on here about what might be important to the typical Teraflex user. One would be low-cost deployment. Another thing that is important, I think, with this type of technology is that you could use this technology for a year as a user, and if it doesn't work for what you want to do, you can move to some other cloud-based technology. There's basically the beauty of Teraflex and a cloud-based technology is that the IT infrastructure is all done for you. You basically just pay for your user account, and then you have full access to the IT backbone that makes the whole thing work. So from the standpoint, it's very low cost to get started. It's very easy to learn, and it's very easy to use, and it's very easy to deploy to people in the field. Now keep in mind, it has some limitations. We can talk about some of that as we go through the webinar. There's limitations on the functionality that's currently in Teraflex, maybe on some of the background map data that's available. And so there are limitations that we can talk about too. And one thing I didn't mention, if you want to log, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, if you'd like to log any questions, just do that within your webinar screen under the questions portion, and we can get to those at the end of the webinar. And the last bullet here on this slide that I did want to hit on is the efficient workflow with no post-field office hassle. So those of you who are on the line that maybe deal with getting data from the field, you've experienced, I assume in the past, some of the bottlenecks that can occur, whether someone's handing you a handheld with data on it, and you're supposed to take the data off that and make sense of it and get it to GIS as an example. Maybe that requires, a lot of manual steps, attaching cables, transferring data. With this concept, you basically remove that bottleneck because the field users are reporting from the field to the server. So the data is automatically uploaded to the server when they have a wireless connection. And so it gives a lot of flexibility as well to the field user. They don't necessarily have to come into the office at the end of the day, say at 5 o'clock. They don't have to come in and hand someone a handheld. It's uploaded from the field. So field users like it because they have flexibility. People in the office like it because they're getting data all the time into the cloud, and they're able to access and manage that data on a more timely fashion. So Teraflex users typically have interest in not only things I was mentioning before as far as like an easy deployment and a low cost, but they like the dynamic flow of information. That's important to them. It doesn't necessarily have to be. You could use Teraflex to do a sign inventory, an urban tree inventory, a road inspection, to map a weed infestation. You could use it to map a utility. There's a lot of different uses, so it's a basic geospatial data collection tool, but it has, with cloud technology, it has the added bonus of being more dynamic with the information. So issue reporting, say incident response, things that are timely. Say you want to get a project out quickly to a bunch of different people in the field to get immediate feedback from those people, whether it be an emergency response application, some kind of incident management, maybe a flood situation, where you want to get a lot of information from folks in a short period of time. So it's very easy to build that project and build those forms and deploy that to either a single user, a group of users, or everyone in your fleet, and then they can report that as soon as they collect the information, that gets uploaded directly back and you can see it in the office. So those applications that require that kind of flow of information that kind of management or work management, essentially, where you can see when someone has completed a project, that kind of thing, are good Teraflex users. It also helps to build consistency in the data collection. So everything is from the cloud out to the field. The forms are built on the cloud, and the user just has a simple interface to collect the form-driven workflow and the data, and it automatically gets uploaded back into that standard format. So it's very consistent, and then getting the data out of the Teraflex cloud is you get the constant or the consistent data, I should say, as part of your export, and we can talk a little bit more about that as well. Okay, so what is Teraflex? So it's a cloud-based solution for mobile GIS field data collection. It's subscription-based with an annual renewal term. So for $250 per user, you have access to the Teraflex Cloud and Teraflex Mobile. Teraflex Mobile gets installed on your iOS or your Android or your Trimble handheld, and that's an easy download. And you get one advantage of a cloud-based technology is if the application changes, you automatically get the updates on your handheld. If a project changes, you automatically get the updates. If forms change, you automatically get those updates when you have a wireless connection in the field. Okay, so there's the two components are the cloud and the mobile aspect, and it's user-driven. You have a user account. You log in to get access to that system. So as an administrator, you can build the projects. You can build the forms associated with the projects, and you can deploy that to field users so they can do their work. So you can pick specific users and deploy just to them, or you could deploy to everyone in your organization if you wanted to. So it's a nice user-centric situation. It's also nice for the field user because they can grab any handheld they happen to have at that time and log into their Teraflex account, and boom, they have the information they need to collect the data. So one day it could be an iPad, the next day it could be a Trimble handheld, the day after that it could be an Android smartphone. So the flexibility that brings is it really enables a lot more of your workflow, your workforce to collect data for you. You can more easily get data from people in the field that maybe you couldn't do before because you didn't have enough devices, or it's difficult to get the new project onto that device or the data dictionary onto that device, or you have devices with different versions of software, etc. It sort of does away with those bottleneck issues as far as the flow of information, and it's much faster and efficient way to collect the information that you want. So a typical Teraflex workflow, and I'll show you, we're going to get here shortly to kind of a little bit more of a demonstration of what it looks like. But the typical workflow is you create a project and you associate users to that project. So you create and assign, you create forms that are part of a project, and then you synchronize that information with the cloud. Okay, so that's done from basically from your desktop. When you log into Teraflex Cloud, you have the functionality to do that. You publish the information, you publish the project in the form to people in the field. So then when they automatically log in the field, they automatically get what was published to them, which in the case would be a project and associated forms. The user then in the field collects the data, very simple. Collect the data, form-driven workflow, collect the data. As they're collecting the data, when they finish with that form, it automatically gets synced back to the cloud. And they can see that on their screen as it gets synced. So if they have wireless coverage, whether it's Wi-Fi or a cell coverage, that's happening automatically. If they're working remotely and they don't have coverage, then it gets synced when they get back into the coverage, or they get back into range, essentially, of their connection to the internet. And that information then that's being uploaded to the cloud can be managed by someone in the office. They're seeing those projects, they're seeing that information, and they're able to manage it. Whether they deploy something else to somebody, or they download the data or export the data and bring it into GIS. Whatever they do there from the cloud, they have the ability to manage the information. So a little bit in review, the Teraflex Cloud, we know now that it's a subscription-based, secure hosted web service. So one of the really nice things is that you can deploy this really quickly because you don't have to worry about any kind of IT backbone infrastructure. That's all done for you. All you have to do is sign up as a user and have a user account to have the cloud and mobile functionality. So it gives you the cloud, it gives you the platform for creating the work, basically creating the project, creating the forms, and deploying those to the field. It also gives you the ability to export the data if you want to use it in other programs, which would be the typical workflow, that data ultimately would be exported, say as an Esri XML format, and used in ArcGIS. Or you could use it in a spreadsheet, or you could use that information in Google Earth. Teraflex Mobile, the other component of Teraflex, is the form-driven application that resides on basically your choice, or your data collection device that you choose. And it automatically syncs to the server when you finish that form. So if I do that tree inspection, I finish that form, when I say OK that form's done, that automatically gets synced back to the cloud, assuming I have wireless connection at that moment. Now, one of the nice things is that it can work offline in remote areas. So ideally, the way that you would do that in a workflow is that you would get the most recent information while you have wireless coverage, say before you leave for your day in the field. So you'd have the current project, the current forms. You go do your work in those remote environments, and then when you get back into the range, it gets synced up to the cloud. You never actually have to go back to the office if you don't want to get the information to the cloud. It's also really nice to be able to push updates to the device from the office. Okay? So there's some basic understanding of what Teraflex is. Let's take a look a little closer here at kind of a little bit more live demonstration. Again, if you have any questions, please log them into the question portion. I was just checking there. I don't see anything of the webinar. Okay, so let's jump out of PowerPoint and open up first the Teraflex Cloud. Okay, again, so this is what you would log into, and here's your, it's sitting on your desktop. Here's what you would typically see in the Teraflex Cloud. Okay, so you have the ability to create new projects. These are existing projects that we have here in the cloud. And then you have one really nice feature is you can import an ArcGIS XML schema from a geodatabase, which pulls all that information out of your geodatabase, those fields and all that information, and builds the project for you, which kind of jump-starts the way to deploy forms in Teraflex. So if I was going to have a new project, and give it a name, we can give it a description if we want to. I would assign the users that have access to that project. So I could have a long list here. I could assign it. I'm going to assign it to myself and one other user. I have real-time settings that are configured ahead of time, and this depends some on the type of device that someone will be using in the field. So SBAS probably makes sense, or you're familiar with that, in the fact that that would be WAS correction for North America. So that's a real-time correction that's very common that most devices will receive in the field and make your GNSS data more accurate. So say, okay, when I deploy this new project that I'm building to the handheld device, when they get it on the handheld device, I want it to be configured to automatically look for the WAS correction instead of just raw autonomous GPS. And there's other options too, like a statewide, like Washington VRS network. I could have it set up to look for that. There's lots of different options for real-time GNSS data correction. Okay, so I've assigned my users for this project. I've set up my real-time for this project. And now I'm going to set up my templates that I would want to use for this project. And we'll keep this very simple. So let's say we're just going to we'll just say that each time we see we're going out and doing some kind of wildlife survey. So we're going to have point data for wildlife that we see. And I want to get some information over here as to what attributes we want to collect in the field. Okay. So I have options of, just your text fields, your number fields, your yes, no questions, your different types of choices, drop-down lists essentially. Oh, I grabbed, I didn't want that to happen. I had this happen to me yesterday, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it grabs onto one of the choices I'm making, and it won't let me get rid of it. Try that again. Okay, so this is a pick list, essentially, that I'm just going to build for this simple form. So in this pick list, I would put my choices in here. Keep in mind, this isn't necessarily the best form that you would normally use for a field project, but it's just for the purposes of this presentation, it should be okay. Okay, so type. I'm going out, I'm looking for wildlife. I want to figure out what type I've got. Let's say done with that. I want to take pictures while I'm out there. And one nice thing it does, allows you to take as many pictures as you want of that specific feature. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to keep this really simple. Now let's put the date in there. You can set up some default to the current date if you want. Sounds like a good idea to me. We'll hit done. Okay, so we got our basic form built. We can set up some labels. This is how it's displayed in Teraflex Cloud. Okay, some information there, and we can say done. So basically, we've built a form for doing, this could be a tree survey, a utility survey, floods, going out on an issue response or incident response, getting some information, whatever it might be. You build the form and then you publish it. And then when you publish it, it'll make the form available to field devices who are assigned as users. Okay, so that form we built has been published. This form up here I'm going to get rid of. Okay, so there we have a form that's part of this project called Wildlife. Okay. So back on the main part of Teraflex Cloud, you can see all your different projects that you have set up. We can see the one we just built called Wildlife 1, tree mapping, whatever it might be. These are all projects that you build in the cloud and then you make available to specific users in the field. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and sign out of the cloud for the moment and then open up my field device and sign into the mobile aspect. Okay, so here's my field device, in this case my Trimble handheld. Keep in mind this could be your iPhone or iPad or Android device. A lot of different devices supported on the multi-platform. Okay, so looking at my, I've already opened Teraflex and signed in. I didn't show you that aspect, but here I'm in the Teraflex interface. Okay, so I can select projects, remove forms. So I'm going to take a look at some of the different projects I have available for that I've been assigned as a user for these projects. So you can see the one we just built for wildlife. I can have tree mapping, etc. Okay, so right now I'm in my Jackson's projects. Okay. So it gives me ability, one, I'm tracking GPS. Okay, so I've got this set up where it shows me my GNSS status of the satellites I'm tracking and my accuracy. You can see the real-time configuration is displayed for the SBAS. In this case, it's waiting for that because I'm just in a spot here where I can't pick it up. The fact that I have 4 satellites is pretty good. The device is just sitting on the window here next to me. If you were outside, like yesterday, I had it outside, and you might have 11 or 12 satellites, and then you get your good accuracy, etc., your real-time correction. So that can be a little bit hard to show when you have the device inside. So luckily, I'm able to get enough satellites to at least get a position. Here's my position on the Google map. Now, one limitation I would say at this point with Teraflex is that it just supports background, the Google map background. There's been discussion about having more flexibility for the users so that you could put in your own GIS data, some of your own background data. But at this point, with the kind of the entry-level Teraflex solution, it takes advantage of the Google Maps as your background. And you have a couple different background options that you can choose from. And again, to display the background, you need to have connection. You need to have the wireless connection. Now, you can get a wireless connection and have that information cached for that spot and then be able to see that map. But typically, the way that the background maps work is with a wireless connection, so you have access to the internet, which automatically pulls down the background, or the base map, we should say. Okay. All right, there's my base map. Now, if I want to map, do something with the forms that I've built, let's hit the plus sign here, and we'll collect, in this case, something on wildlife. Okay. So to collect the location, I have a couple different options here. I can either use GPS. I can use an offset. So in case of like the Trimble handheld that I'm using here, it actually has a laser rangefinder built into it. And so that laser rangefinder gives me the ability to do offset mapping, which would be very handy in a lot of applications, make you more efficient in the field. Or I can do on-screen digitizing, which would also be handy, so see if I have a good base map. So tap on the map to collect this wildlife point. Okay, so I'm just going to click on a spot right there, and then hit the check mark to accept that location. I can put in my type. Type in what it might be, if it's not in the pick list, let's say. Okay, I can snap a photo. So here I'm outside here. Oh, there happens to be the elk that hangs out in my backyard. I've got a picture of the trophy elk for my survey. That's by far my favorite part of this webinar, is the picture of that elk. Okay, so I hit OK. And I've got my photo should come in right here. There it is. And one really nice thing is I can just keep hitting the plus sign and getting additional pictures for that if I want to. Okay. All right, so that has been recorded. That information is automatically being sent to the cloud now. You can see here where it says sending form. And I mean, there's a couple things to consider here. One would be the speed of your wireless connection, how fast you can move the form, and also what really makes the difference is the number of pictures that you take and how you have the camera configured on megapixels and picture size. So like in this case where it's kind of sitting here, sending the form and you're waiting, is because it's moving that picture. If you're just moving attribute data, it's very quick because the data amount is much smaller. Okay, so that's been synced. I can see here what I've collected in that project. I would be able to see, and if I want to see what's been collected, I can go back if I need to and update any of these for different locations, different attributes, whatever it might be. So that's what's been collected within that project. Okay, so pretty basic. Now, if I want to go and work on a different project, I can do that. So I can collect, go to a different project that's been assigned to me, and then I can go ahead and collect information based on those forms that are part of that project. Okay. So again, you have the nice flexibility of either mapping on your GPS location. You can do a laser offset. So in this case, with this device, it actually launches so it's a combination of using the camera and the laser rangefinder. It zooms in quite close. This is more designed for being outside. Okay, so you get the idea, though, that I've got a range, a bearing, an inclination, etc. And so I'm doing an offset location, which is really handy if you're outside to try to map things that are hard to reach or things you don't necessarily need to occupy to get the information, whether it's something on the other side of the river, something way above you on a hillside, whatever it might be. You can use the offset capabilities to map that. Okay. I'm going to go back and collect the point just by tapping on the screen, which is a nice feature as well. So basically on-screen digitizing to get that location. And then as before, I go through and fill out my information, date of inspection. That's defaulted to today's date based on the form we built. Record the condition. Does that tree need to be removed? Photo, etc. Okay. Let's go ahead and remove that tree. Done. And then by hitting the check mark, that form was complete. And then that form has been uploaded. And notice how much quicker that was because it didn't have the photo. That's basically the thing that takes the most time to transfer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of Teraflex. And let's go back and take a look at our Teraflex cloud. Okay, so here I am back at Teraflex Cloud. I could go ahead and sign in. Log in as with my user account. And then I would be within the Teraflex Cloud and I could see all the different projects and information that I would be uploaded with different projects. So let's say the tree mapping project, I can take a look at that. Wednesday, February 12th is the one tree that I mapped. You can see information over here on that. Okay. I look at maybe some of my other projects. Here's some information I have on the wildlife survey. You can see the picture that we took in the field. So it's an easy way to move pictures and to be able to access that information and see it. So there's our picture of our field survey. Now, from the cloud, you can manage this information. We saw earlier how you can create projects, you can build forms, you can define users, you can define real-time GNSS settings, etc., and basically push that information out. You also have the ability to export the information from the cloud. So that's a common question is, I've got all this information in the cloud, how do I get it out of the cloud to use in my own application, typically ArcGIS that I have, and I want the information. So you have export routines available, and you can export all the forms or forms that you want exported. You can set some filters, and then you have some of your basic formats that you can export the data. And I expect that this will probably evolve as well into additional formats or additional ways to support, say, the Esri technology. But with today's version of Teraflex, you can export the data for Google Earth, CSV for, say, just taking and getting a spreadsheet format of the information, or you can have an ArcGIS XML file, which can then be imported into a geodatabase. Okay, so you have your different ways of getting the information out to use it in your programs back in the office as well. Okay. All right, so that gets us through an overview of Teraflex, gets us through a live demonstration of both the cloud and the mobile application and the flow of information between those two. Let me look here to see if, while we're going through, if we have any questions. I have a question about if Teraflex software is supported on a TSC3 controller, which would be a Trimble controller. So I can send out a list of the different Trimble devices that this is supported on. But essentially, at this point, it's supported on the Juno 3 and 5 series. It's supported on the Trimble Geo 6000 and Geo 7X series. And then moving away from Trimble devices, then it's supported on your iOS and your Android platforms. Okay. So the idea there is that the product will continue to evolve and support even more devices going forward, but you still have this wide multi-platform support when you include all the iOS and Android device that this software can run on. Second question we have, is there a trial of this service available? And yes, there is. That's a very good question. And if you go to the Trimble TerraFlex website that I just pulled up here, and hopefully everybody can see. There we go. You can go to your you can get full access free 30-day trial by going to the Try TerraFlex tab, and you get complete access to the cloud and the mobile application. Okay, so that's definitely what we suggest for anyone who's interested, and you get to try everything out. You can build your projects, your forms, deploy them, use them on your handheld, go through the entire workflow with that 30-day account and that 30-day trial. And then if you decide that Teraflex is for your organization, then it's essentially the $250 per user per year. So it's user-centric. Each user needs their own account, their own login, and they pay for their that annual service. Okay. Is the Windows, and let me go here to a couple more questions. Can you upload domain names to your pick list? So the best way to do that is with instead of creating a new project, you can use the ArcGIS XML imports utility, which then does bring the domain information from your geodatabase in to build your forms. So those pick lists that you've set up, etc., automatically come in as part of your form, and it's a really nice way to jumpstart ahead for building that Teraflex solution by taking the ArcGIS XML format. So yes. Does this software, we have lots of questions, this is great. Does this software replace the need for Pathfinder Office? The Teraflex workflow currently doesn't support post-processing. That is likely in the roadmap going forward, is that ability. But at this point, it supports real-time correction. So you have your, depending on the real-time correction source that you have available to you, is what you can use. So you can use, if you have a Washington or a statewide VRS, you could connect to that, and you could have very high accuracy. Say with a Geo7X, you could have 10 centimeter accuracy in a Teraflex workflow. So it's not designed to replace Pathfinder Office, but it's designed to work on a lot of different devices, although it can support high accuracy mapping when connected to a high accuracy workflow or real-time correction. There's a question here about whether group discounts are available, and that's something we could discuss with the individual. Essentially, it is set up on a user account, though, for the $250 per user. Okay. Hopefully I got through all the questions in the amount. I think we're running short on time here. I mentioned originally it was going to be a 30-minute webinar, and we've run over a little bit, about 40 minutes. So I should wrap up. Again, I just want to pull up my contact information here in case there are additional questions. You can either call me or just send me an email, and we can talk further about the solution. Thanks again for attending today's webinar. I hope it was helpful and informative for you, and I hope you learned a little bit more about the new Trimble TerraFlex solution. With that, we'll go ahead and end today's webinar. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thanks again for attending. Goodbye.